The holidays at Biltmore have always been a beautiful and exciting time, and we see that as well in Downton Abbey. The Vanderbilt and the Cecil families both loved to throw lavish parties that were both fun and fashionable for the times. And so we enter the banquet hall, a central focus of the holidays for the Vanderbilts. And we see that on Downton as they enter their banquet hall.
Certainly.
What went on here during Christmas time and the holidays?
So from the very beginning, they decorated, not probably quite this lavishly, really our decor is inspired by the Gilded Age, but they had this phenomenal tree from the very beginning. So a 30-foot tree, that was really the centerpiece. So in 1895, when Biltmore first opened, George was a bachelor. So he didn't have a wife to hostess, and so his mother filled that role, and they handed out gifts to the children. Mountain children didn't have access to fruit on a regular basis, and so oranges and apples were a great treat, so each child got that. And the oral histories that we have from the very beginning all the way up until the 50s talk about how Christmas was such a special time at Biltmore, how it was such a wonderful tradition, how warm it was to come together with their family and to receive these fun gifts from the Vanderbilts. One of my favorite stories, a woman who was quite elderly was sharing her memories of growing up on the estate, and she talked about coming to the Christmas party. And Mrs. Vanderbilt gave her paper dolls, and her name was Eugenia Halliburton, and Eugenia did not care for her paper dolls. And instead of just keeping that to herself, she was comfortable enough with Mrs. Vanderbilt and told her that she didn't really like her paper dolls. And instead of being horrified, Mrs. Vanderbilt was completely gracious, and she said, "Well, Eugenia, what would you like?" And she looked at the trees and she said, "I love those glass balls." And instead of just taking one and giving it to her, Mrs. Vanderbilt called Donahue, who was the butler, and they stripped all of the glass balls off of the trees and gave it to all of the children. And then from that point on, whenever Mrs. Vanderbilt traveled, which was a significant period of time, she would bring back glass balls for Eugenia. By the time that she was older, had an entire tree full of balls, and then her cat climbed it and knocked down the tree and broke all of the glass balls.
Oh my goodness.